Hello everyone, welcome to Merlin's Manor and to another edition of Game Mechanics Monday. Today I'm going to be looking at another one of my favorite game mechanics, and this is deck building. Now in deck building, you start out with a hand of cards that's usually a fairly weak hand of cards. And let's give you an example here. We've got cards that have, you see the slash marks in the bottom corner there? That tells you that you can do one attack there. You'll have cards like that. You'll have cards like this one right here, which is one by power with that star there. And so a lot of times you'll have very weak cards like that. Another game here, we see that one up there in the corner is for buy power. And you have some cards that have like one movement on them like that. And so you start out with very weak, being able to do very little with your cards. You may even start out with some negative cards, like this one you can't do anything with, but it adds one clank, which is something that's not good to have. And so you start out with these very weak decks, and you're going to be building a stronger deck by getting better cards, by being able to buy those cards or retain them in some other way. In order to do that, oftentimes these games have what's called a market, and you'll have a whole bunch of cards laid out that you are able to purchase with that buy power from some of those cards. And in this market, you have not only cards that you can buy, but different cards sometimes that you can defeat in order to get points or other benefits. Some cards in these markets will have immediate effects, things that you can do that you take advantage of when you defeat that card or retain that card. But most of them will have things that you do later on. You'll put that card that you buy into a discard pile, which then when you reshuffle your deck, you'll have those new cards in there that you'll be able to do more with. And there's a lot of tension with these marketplaces between other players, because you'll see a card come out when somebody buys something or defeats something in the row, and be like, oh, that's a card I really want to get. Hopefully it'll be around when it comes back to my turn. And then maybe the person right after that will then buy that card up and you won't be able to get it. Sometimes even when you buy a card, another card will come out like, oh, that had just been out there. And so there's a lot of tension of, will that card be around for me to buy or defeat when it comes my turn? Another big part of some deck builders is the idea of culling your weaker cards. Some cards that you buy will give you the ability to get rid of a card. And so those negative cards are going to be the first ones you're going to want to try and get rid of. And then some of your starting cards where you're only getting one buy power, one movement, or one attack power, when you get that opportunity to cull that, you want to jump on that, because then you don't have to worry about that weak card coming up again. You can focus just on the stronger cards that you've gotten into your hand. Another big part of deck builders is trying to find a synergy in the cards that you buy. That you'll find cards that go really well together, and you might want to go down focusing on those cards more, while somebody else is focusing on maybe a different strategy with a different synergy that works better for them. There's also kind of a tension between a benefit now. Maybe there's a card that will help you really well right now, but is going to become weaker as the game goes on. Or there's another card which isn't going to be as useful to you right now, but it's going to help you a lot down the road. Some cards are even not worth anything for the actual gameplay, are only worth points at the end, and they're going to weaken your deck as far as what you can do, but they're worth points at the end of the game, and so you've got to kind of balance that as well. Do I want to get this card that's going to clog my deck, but is going to give me points? And oftentimes you kind of, towards the end of the game, are more focused on getting those cards than in the early part. And the gameplay for most of these games goes as such. You have your hand set up, usually 5 or 6 cards to a hand, and you will go ahead and you will play all your cards one at a time. Some will give you the ability to draw more cards sometimes, and different other things like that. And then once you've played all your cards out, you will then discard those cards into a discard pile, and then you will draw up a new set of 5, 6 cards, or depending on whatever the amount of cards the game has. And so that's the basic gameplay. A lot of these games are focused on getting victory points throughout the game and having the most victory points at the end, but there are other things that go on as far as the way those games play. And I'll kind of go into that in just a minute as I get into some specific games that I think do this deck building mechanism really well. And the first one I want to mention is not in my collection. It is called Ascension. And this is one of the classic deck builder games that came out early on, but it still has a lot to offer. First of all, you have a card river of monsters and heroes that you are able to purchase the heroes that give you victory points sometimes, but also give you, they go into your deck and you're able to play those cards for different benefits, as well as monsters that you're going to defeat that give you sometimes usually a one-time benefit right then, as well as victory points. And then they just go away. The game ends after all the honor is collected, and whoever has the most victory points at the end of the game wins that game. Another good one is Summer Camp. And in this game, it's a very good entry-level game, and so I highly recommend that for if you're just getting into deck building games and you're not sure what you want to get or are not sure how you'll be able to handle some of the more complicated ones. This one's a great one to start out with. And basically it's a race along 3 tracks to get merit badges. And the first person that gets to all their people to the first bridge section will get the highest victory point badge. The second person, the next highest, and third, so on and so forth. There'll be another bridge. First person that gets there will get higher victory points, and so on and so forth, down, lower and lower. And then at the end of each track, there's also, for the first person that gets to the end of that track, will get the highest one, and then lower and lower as they go. And then once all those, one person's collected all 3 of the different merit badges at the end, triggers the end game. Whoever has the most points between the different merit badges they were able to pick up, as well as different cards that they were able to buy along the way, will win the game. And there's a lot of tension in this game as far as, do you want to rush out to start getting ahead of everybody and trying to get those the higher value merit badges quickly? Or do you want to take your time a little bit in the beginning and buy more cards? There's also this interesting mechanic where you are using the cards that you don't want to use for their movement or whatever that turn, or their ability that turn. You can use those to get to spend as money. And so you got this tension between, do I buy cards right now that are going to get me out ahead later on, or do I move more right now and get some weaker cards as I go? And the next one I want to talk about is Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle. Now this is a cooperative deck building game, and so you are working together as a team to try to defeat the evil wizards and win the day. And so this is interesting in that you're working together. A lot of deck builders are competitive, but this one is a fully cooperative game. And again, it has a marketplace. You're going to be strengthened up just like every other one. But the trick in this one is you are focused on defeating the bad guys in this one. And so that's Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle. We also have the Legendary series. And I got 2 examples right here. We got Marvel Legendary, which is a competitive, or semi-cooperative, but mostly competitive version of a deck builder. It's semi-cooperative in that you are fighting together to defeat the Mastermind. We have to defeat the Mastermind 4 times in order to trigger the end game. And of course, the Mastermind could defeat the players as well, and so you have to kind of work together in that sense to try and defeat the Mastermind. But at the end of the game, whoever has the most victory points through rescuing bystanders, through getting other cards into your hand that are worth victory points, as well as defeating those Masterminds and other villains, is going to win the game. And so it's a very semi-cooperative version. The Legendary Encounters series, which I have Firefly right here. There's also Aliens and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and there's a few other ones out there. And so there's a bunch of these different Encounters games, which are cooperative games. They play where you're basically working together to defeat the enemy, and so it's a very good cooperative game as well as far as that goes. So now the final game I want to talk about is Clank. Now Clank, the regular version of Clank, is a very competitive game where you are trying to get into the dungeon and get the most points you can through getting artifacts and other things that will give you points, as well as points from cards that you collect along the way, and then get out before you wind up getting defeated by the dragon. And everybody's kind of working against each other and trying to be the one to get the most, as well as to get out. And if you get out ahead of everybody else, then they are going to be more likely to get attacked by the dragon over and over again. And so some people will take the strategy to get in there and just get a few little things and get out, while others will try and go deep and get the most points and still hopefully they can make it out. Clank Legacy here is kind of a semi-cooperative version of that game, as you are working together to a certain degree to try and make sure that the Dran agents don't give you a lot of problems, and things get harder in the game if you if more people don't make it out. And so you want others to at least make it above ground, and so you try not to really mess people up too much in that manner, but at the same time it is a competitive game where the person who scores the most points is going to be the winner. And over the course of the campaign, as this one is, whoever wins the most games and other things like that is going to be the overall winner. And so to a certain degree, there's that tension between, do I allow the other people to get out and so that no bad things kind of happen, try and encourage and work together a little bit more on that. as well as you're completing missions along the way as well that help you out in the Legacy game. And so you're working together, but at the same time, you're not. You're trying to be the one that gets the most points in the end. It's an interesting dynamic there. So these have been some good deck building games that really do that mechanic well, that have some different aspects to them, so you have a little bit of variety going there as to what you might be looking for. I hope you have enjoyed this look at deck building games. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe to see more videos, and I'll catch you in the next video.